My name is Tom Chapman. I am a multi-time founder. Currently, I am part of a founding team that includes my wife, and we have co-founded a business called Peeq Pro. So I have informed all of them that I'm going to talk relatively little in this, but as a founder, that doesn't happen very much. So I will say, don't be surprised when I jump in with some of my own thoughts. So we're going to start a little bit differently. I'm not doing introductions because as a founder, we are trained to do elevator pitches, to talk about ourselves and then to just go right into the company. And I know most of you will probably start logging into your phones, et cetera, in about 10 minutes. So I want to make sure they get their asks out early. So when they ask you to do something, what I will tell you, the number one thing to take away from this is founders don't get very many opportunities to ask you to do stuff. Please do whatever they ask. Really, please do. Because I can tell you, I go to these a lot, and I have a consumer product, and after the end of these meetings, I'll add 4 or 5 customers, but there are 50 people in this room. It's not that hard. Be a customer, do what they ask, do introductions, etc. So with that, I'm going to hand off to Karen, and she's going to jump right in.
I'm going to jump right in. Hi, guys. Good morning. My name is Karen Borchert, and I am the founder and CEO of a company here in town called Alpaca. We're just down the street in Millwork Commons. We are an employee engagement platform built for K-12 school educators. So we work on the problem of teacher retention and teacher engagement. We support educators in both schools and districts with a pulse survey that helps leaders understand how their teachers are doing, a variety of resources and programs to help schools celebrate their educators. So I started off as an educator and then went into the tech sector and spent a lot of time in employee engagement, and this company kind of brings together those two things for us. We've evolved over the past few years that we have been around. We now operate in about 250 schools and districts across the United States. So I'm thrilled to get to be here. My ask of you is if you know either software developers or salespeople and they're looking for work, you send them my way.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer Lee, founder of Entry Envy. And this came after, I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. I actually managed law firms in Omaha for about 20 years, heavily on the executive director side, heavy on tech. And then I remodeled a house 5 years ago, and I was trying to solve a curb appeal problem, and I wanted faux floral shipped to my front door for my front porch, and no one did that in America. And so I became my own first customer and started Entry Envy, and you are more than welcome to get your phones out at any time and go to entryenvy.com. You all have front porches, and if you don't like to water your front porch plants and take care of them, we ship beautiful arrangements that are done for you, and you literally stick them in your pots, and your front porch looks great for all the holidays and seasons. But it's been an interesting journey. So we're an e-commerce company. We have about 500 customers across the country that we ship to on a regular basis, and many more that are one-time, and it's a great gift, etc. But e-commerce is a direct-to-consumer business. We also have a B2B product now with these planters that were relatively new. And I always say that, like in the last 6 months, I didn't launch that product until March, that it took 3.5 years at $1 million to figure out the product we should have launched from day one, because the B2B market is tremendous for that. There's not a solution. But any company that's online is heavy on the tech side right now. I mean, I never considered ourselves a tech company until I was talking to somebody and they're like, what's your tech stack? And I'm like, yeah, I guess we are pretty heavy in tech. But we didn't develop any of it. We're on Shopify, Recharge, Klaviyo, like the back end of that. So it may be a little unique on that side compared to some people that have developed their own. But okay.
I'll get this.
Good.
Is this on? Can you hear me or no? It is on?
There's a switch.
Oh, that seems important. I'm Kellee Mikuls. I was kind of confused while I was on this panel at one point, but I did have a startup. It was called Swish Boom. It was an Uber for babysitting. I see a few people nodding in the room, so that's good. There was some brand awareness there. We did over 4,000 babysitting jobs here in Omaha, and we ran out of money in October. We raised a seed round of $650,000, but we ran out of money. And to have a startup is expensive, and to sustain a startup is expensive. And then while I was grieving that, I got approached by the board of Ignite Nebraska, which is a workforce development nonprofit, to be their executive director, and that's what I'm doing today. Is where we're kind of in a startup nonprofit. We have a team of 4, and we are rapidly growing across the state of Nebraska, where we take people that have had non-traditional backgrounds, adult career changers, and we upskill them for quality careers. And we have a 93% retention rate at year 3, and our participants see a 51% increase in their income after our 6-month program. So we just rolled out a partnership with Google. We work with Warner, UP, Boys Town, Blue Cross Blue Shield. I see Ryan Cameron in the room. We'd love to work with Children's, even more in their Ignite entry-level IT roles, but we are growing, and so I'm happy to talk about my life as a past kind of tech founder, and then also now as a really nonprofit founder and startup, kind of in that vein as well. So happy to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Tullen Mabbutt. I am the CFO of CompanyCam, based out of Lincoln, Nebraska. I started 6 years ago when this crazy guy, Luke Hansen, told me he thought he might need some finance help. So it's been a crazy 6 years. I was employee number 36, and now we're at 360 by the end of the year. So it's been quite the journey over 6 years. What does CompanyCam do? We are a documentation, accountability, and productivity app for trade contractors. Think your roofer, the person coming over to fix your HVAC, your plumber, building fences, building pretty much anybody that would show up to your residential home to do work. They open the CompanyCam app. It's all based around visual documentation and communication. Changing the physical world is very hard, and you need proof of it. But also, a picture is worth 1,000 words or 1,000 workflows, like I like to say. So contractors are taking these job site photos, and we've built a ton of productivity tools on the back of photos and videos to help them get more done. So my ask to all of you is, who here knows a contractor? Yeah, I would assume everyone. We have 50,000 contractors on our platform, but we could always use more. Go ahead and send them our way.
So Tullen, hold on to the microphone because you're going to get the first question, then we'll work our way back down.
Yeah.
All right, so what are the challenges at CompanyCam, the rest of your companies, and what are some of the things that would be beneficial in the purview of Tech Nebraska to help you solve those challenges?
Yeah, so funding, especially early stages, is always a challenge. So I'll tell my favorite startup funding story ever, which is Luke Hansen. And if you haven't seen him online, you should check it out. He's an insane founder that does big things. But I like to say, initially when Luke had the idea, he was working within the family's roofing company, White Castle Roofing at the time, back in like 2016. The only person that would invest in Luke Hansen and this crazy idea was somebody that didn't know they were investing in Luke Hansen and this crazy idea. So he, without his dad's approval, went and got the prototype grant. And then he went to accounting at White Castle Roofing with an invoice for a subcontractor development firm for $30,000 and just said, everything's fine, we got to pay them. We're doing a little side project. So starting something when you just have an idea is very hard, and you do have to be scrappy. Across our whole story, the Nebraska ecosystem has been super supportive in helping Luke get to the next hard part. I think challenges we face today are hiring locally for tech talent has just been challenging, especially in our tech stack. So anything you can do to support that, but also amazing stories like CompanyCam wouldn't happen without all of that early support that Luke was able to get from the community. So keep doing that.
Want me to go down? Okay. I think, so I'm from Hawaii originally, went to Marquette in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My husband is from Nebraska, and hence why I'm here. So we can blame Joe why I'm here, and it's freezing and my legs are showing, which is not a good choice. But I think that Nebraska's biggest challenge is that they are not an early adapter of ideas. And so when you have a startup, they always say, well, I want to see someone else locally who's accepted it and then come back to us. I see Dara walked in the room. Werner is a great example of a company that is willing to really put their neck out there and say, you know, we're going to take a bet on someone down the street. I think Fleet Defender is one of the startups that they support. Companies need to do more of that. Like Swish Boom would still be around today if we had companies that bought in. We were rolling out a benefits model, childcare, right? We were rolling out childcare right after COVID. Number one issue that employers, everyone was talking about, and I don't mean this in a antagonistic way, but no one was willing to step up to, there was a solution here that we could get you a verified sitter within 60 seconds to claim the job like a DoorDash. They were all verified, proven, they had a profile, it was great. Companies were like, we want to see someone else do it. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges as a startup founder. I find that even with Ignite. I mean, we have a 93% retention rate at year 3. Our participants generate 51% increase in income, and 100% of them get off state benefits. When I go to an employer, they'll say, let's start with one role. And then the next time I come back, they're like, okay, we'll try another one role in 6 months. And it's like, this is a good thing. Like, we have a good product here. We're doing really good things. Why can't you get out of your own way and just support us? And that's the biggest thing and I know many of these founders, you hear about the workshop, they had to get Nike to buy in before they could get any of the big tall buildings that we see around downtown to say that they wanted to be their first customer. And so you want to talk about brain drain, you want to talk about companies in this town have the capital to be able to step up and be the first customer, and they're going to lose out on great startups, great ideas, and they're going to close like mine or others that won't even start because they don't have those type of support.
I think that in the beginning, there is a lot of support in Nebraska for helping sort of you figure out and get into the startup ecosystem, and I'm going to call it that. But there's a spot where, and you know, Tullen, we kind of mentioned, like, when do you not become a startup anymore? Like, where does that cross over? And is it based on how long you've been around? Is it based on how big you are, how much capital you've raised, when you hit profitability? I mean, there's so many people who do not understand that it literally took Uber 14 years before they made $1, but they had a $2 billion valuation. People do not understand how much incredible amount of money it takes in the startup space. And, you know, startups are different than a small business that you're doing as a lifestyle. And a lot of the founders don't understand when they go into it how much money they're going to need and how fast you can burn through it. And people in the startup world in Nebraska get frustrated that we have to go outside of Nebraska sometimes for those capital needs because the check sizes here aren't big enough. And it kind of goes back to Kellee's point of like, well, we'll give you 25,000 or we'll give you 50,000, but to get to the next level, that company probably needs $1 million or more, and that's a lot harder to come up with. Our number one subscriber state, so we started 4 years ago. We're all subscription based, and our number one subscriber state is Texas. Tell me how that's possible. Like, I am here talking to every group all the time, every craft show, everything that we've done. And our number one subscriber state in the country is Texas. And that's just organic. But it's interesting. So I've also said, though, that if you can sell this product in Nebraska, you can sell it anywhere because we are late adopters. So it's interesting, but I think overall the tech community, the startup community, it's really good in the beginning, but then it gets to this void of where, great, we've got you to revenue, not to profitability, But to get to the place where that startup is going to really scale, we need way more money and support than what this community often will give to the next space. And there's a void of, I don't know whether it's what year or what, the point that you start, but let's just say you get to 100,000 in revenue. Great, good job. Come back to us when you've got $1 million in revenue, and then we'll talk again. So I think there's a gap.
All right. Your question is what challenges are we facing as a business, right?
Correct.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna take it that direction. So honestly, we sell to schools and school districts as a company. That's who we sell to. So our customers are superintendents who have big questions about their budgets. There's a lot of uncertainty in both public and private school. We sell to both. And so honestly, our main thing that challenges us every single day is getting up and staying focused on selling to our customer every day, because there is no amount of investment and there is no amount of support or ecosystem or community that gets further along than revenue and sales. And so our job is to stay focused on continuing to build business and continuing to build growth. And that's, of course, that's when funding gets easier too, right? So, but that for us, that's our number one challenge of every single day for every single person on our team is staying focused on growing the business.
I think that's a good place to sort of bookend and then kind of come back at a slightly different question. So I know that in our previous meetings, almost everyone has talked about talent and just the challenge associated with building a technical startup. Jennifer, I agree with you as somebody who runs an e-commerce company. It's way more technical than people appreciate. That technical startup, how do you find the talent? How do you get the talent to move to Nebraska, Tullen? That was the thing you've talked about. And how is the entire kind of system here set up so that startups can both succeed and fail? What are some of the things that are unique to startups that are different than a First National or a Werner? So I'm going to hand it back to Karen, and then we'll work our way back.
Okay. So I used to work at a company here in town called Flywheel, and the founders of Flywheel used to say my very favorite thing about talent, which is it's easy to hire 20 software developers. You just start 7 years ago. And the point of that is that that talent isn't about finding. Talent is, in our world, about growing talent. So we are a company, Flywheel I learned it there, and Alpaca is a company that does a lot of growing our own talent. We do a lot of identifying really extraordinary and high potential individuals and then pouring into them everything that they need to succeed and grow and become leaders in our company. So our one and only full-time software developer came to us literally from her graduation at the Rake School. And she's an extraordinary talent who is growing into a leader in her own right in our company. We hire baristas, we hire teachers, we hire folks who do not have traditional startup or technology company backgrounds, and we help them find their way. And by the way, we gain extraordinary insight and context and experience into the company by hiring outside of those traditional roles. So I don't get anyone to come to Nebraska. We hire completely locally. We are in person, in office, in Nebraska, and pretty much all female. So that's where we've started. It's a hot take on the question, but that's how we've done it.
We're a manufacturing company in addition to being a D2C e-com company. So the signs that we make for our product are typically the women who are working on it, and they are all women between the ages of 19 and 25 who we are teaching to use drills, saws, paint, sand. And then the other side of our product, creating the faux floral decor kits, are all semi-retired grandmas, I'm going to call them, that love hot glue guns and floral tape, and they are in heaven making fake flowers all day long. From the tech standpoint, I did a lot of the early stuff myself, and being in the you have to be scrappy category, I ended up offshoring most of it, and I've just had one guy who's been amazing for 4 years with me, and I tried to go in the Nebraska side, and this is interesting, don't want to deviate too much, but we were not eligible for the prototype grant because we were not developing our own tech. And so if you're familiar with that, because we were using third party. And the only way that you can get money to support, basically then you have to hire Nebraska tech folks if you get the prototype grant, which is great. But we couldn't get the grant. And so I couldn't afford the rates that were in Nebraska for startup, but I could afford a $30 person that is in Pakistan. And once you develop those relationships, it's hard to make the change. So make the argument for it. And I have a few other, my team is technical. We're handling, again, a lot of that third party, but there is a lot of talent in Nebraska, and I agree with Karen. Hire somebody who's nice, smart, and organized, and you can teach them how to do anything.
Yeah, so Ignite Nebraska is a nonprofit, and we don't have to hire tech talent, but we talk to CTOs and CIOs every day about how we can help them fill their tech talent needs with our participants. And the thing that I'm seeing, this is more just kind of a theme, is that entry-level tech jobs seem to be going away. Or at least the expectation of those entry-level jobs are really what those mid or kind of secondary level are needing. For example, we reached out to ConAgra, and they have outsourced all their IT help desk to the Philippines. So they don't do that here locally anymore. So that's not even something that we can fill with our participants. When we reach out to CTOs about, that desktop support person that's maybe making $50,000, that person now, they don't need those jobs because AI, there's a lot of softwares that are replacing that. So for us, as we help trying to find the pain points for other businesses of where their talents are, what we're seeing is that where we add a lot of value is that a lot of talent is lacking in some of soft skills that we can help bridge some of those gaps that they have. And then we're trying to retool some of their existing employees with skills that are becoming more prevalent, like AI, project management, things like that. So that's kind of the themes that we're seeing across our state as it relates to tech talent, is that entry level's kind of gap is, that entry level band is diminishing, and that people are needing to be retooled on more skills to kind of be able to do the job with the support of AI software.
Yeah, so over the years for CompanyCam, it has been a challenge to hire, especially technical roles. Sales, marketing, operations, my team finance is all local. But hiring, technical product managers, designers, software engineers has been really challenging. So, we were 90% local when I came in. Now we're 50% local, and that's going to keep going down as we have to go get engineering talent. I was talking to Tom a little bit about, we've offered relocation packages often. We try to pitch it. It is hard to convince someone to leave San Diego to come to Nebraska, which I can understand. But yeah, on the technical side, I would agree that it's also we've struggled to hire junior engineers, or we haven't had the desire to hire junior engineers just because we're trying to grow so quickly. And this year, every single quarter, we've been at least 17 engineers behind our hiring plan. And as we go and look into what we want to get done next year, it is going to be very hard for us to hire the engineering talent that we need and want. What I will say early on, success feeds other success. Our first CTO had been at Huddle, and turns out Huddle also does a bunch of stuff with images and video, and so it like laid the foundation. And we stole a lot of employees from Huddle early on. I don't know if anybody from Huddle is in here, but if you are, thank you so much. And so I think the question around like for any of the ecosystem builders is like how do we make Nebraska more attractive to come to, and how do we do that, and then how do we keep building up talent pipelines, and the more wins you create in an ecosystem, the more opportunity there will be for that next company to dig into talent and now have a 3-time GTM leader that has taken a company from 1 million ARR to 200 million ARR. We need to keep finding ways to make that happen, because I do think it'll cause the density. And our CPOs in Houston, and even last night, he was one that I've been really, really trying to get relocated, and I might get him. So we'll see. He texted me last night, do I just need to be in the office more? And I was like, yes, you do.
So Tullen actually brought up something that we were talking about in the hallway. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience, but it was really driven by everybody saying, yeah. So Peeq Pro is we're raising money right now. One of the things we're raising money for is to hire marketing expertise. People say, oh, we have a ton of marketing expertise. There's all these firms that do marketing, et cetera, et cetera. But when you need unique things for the type of business you are, those aren't necessarily resident, and they're really expensive. So in our specific case, we're going direct to consumer, and we're talking about running a minimum of a $100,000 campaign to build infomercials, essentially, that go on social media. People are like, oh, we do that. And I'll say, great. How many of those companies that have gone from $30,000 to $30 million have you worked with? They're like, oh, no, we only work with banks that have $20 billion. It's like they have a different budget and a different way of doing this. So as we talk about talent, what are some of the things that you're like, oh, you know what? Like, this is the sort of skill, Tullen, you mentioned some skills where it was like 1 million ARR to 200 million ARR. What are some of the skills that we don't have here that you're like, yeah, we just can't find this type of person who would be super valuable? They may be a vendor, they may be a contractor, they may be an employee. What are some of those gaps that we see in the ecosystem? I'm going to let Tullen go first. We'll work our way back.
Yeah, I think product management is a gap that we should be able to fill. I don't know how to fill that, but I just look at, we should be able to fill product management. We have struggled with that. And then, engineering's our biggest gap locally. And what makes it challenging from the engineering perspective is, like, for us, we're a Ruby on Rails shop. Nobody else is building any big software companies on Ruby here, really. So, like, that just, like, instantly makes our ecosystem not as valuable for us to pull from. I don't know how to solve that. Maybe we shouldn't have picked Ruby, but it works quite well. So, yeah.
You probably have more thoughts on this.
I would really agree with you as far as like things experience-wise, like people who have seen it and taken companies from 0 to 100 and from 100 to 200. It is, we have a lot of folks who have been in startups around this ecosystem who have been in very early stages. But we have our total number of people who have either sold, developed, built, product managed from that, or even built teams from 50 to 100 people, from 100 to 200 people, from two. So we have a lot of really little guys in startups, and then we have some really big companies here in town. But the middle, that kind of messy middle of what happens between 100 and 300 people is less clear here, and so you see fewer of those folks come through that have that type of experience, who have seen it and done it, and are building it and are ready to go build it again. Ready, like they have a playbook, they're ready to run that playbook, and they're doing that again. I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I think in our space of being e-commerce product based, most people are scared of it. When I say terrified from the investor standpoint, from just touching it, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to do direct to consumer, I don't want to do product based, I don't want to do e-com, whatever it is. And I would agree just with Karen, we just had somebody relocate back to Omaha after traveling 18 years, scaling 7 different startups, all e-commerce product based. And she just, came back from Virginia 6 months ago. I've talked to, I feel like everybody in the state, trying to find somebody that was local without having to go out that I could work with. And so there's just not, they go elsewhere. And maybe it's just size-driven companies, but you need the expertise. You need specifically the expertise in your space of what you're building, because the thing in startups is everybody is that's the very definition of it. Nobody's done this before. Almost every single one is a category creation. So it's part of that homegrown piece. The other thing that I would say, just from early experience of just even it's a different culture. It's very, very fast. It's very nimble. It requires a lot of agility. It requires having people that have every employee has to have a tolerance for risk that's higher than average. And go back to Nebraska, conservative, let me see somebody that's done this before, let me prove it. It's not in general maybe the culture that is across the board. But
microphone back.
So I have a couple more questions, but this room looks like you want to ask questions. So I know some of you have done things in the startup space and many of you have not. So are there specific topics? You have founders on the stage, you have people that have scaled businesses, you have some very successful startup people. What do you want to know about? So if you have a question, shout it out. We'll ask it to the panel. We'll see what they say. Otherwise, you're stuck with me. So, go ahead. So the question was about retention rate. What is your retention rate as a new and upcoming company?
For employees, is that the retention rate for employees? I think ours is 100 currently. We have a very excited group of people. I think we're kind of in the building stage of what we're doing. So everybody. That's probably not quite right. It's probably not exactly 100, but also I do think that there's sort of a thing that happens, kind of a mutual selection thing that happens in a startup, where if somebody doesn't have that tolerance for risk, or if it's just not the thing for them, or it's not the thing for the company that the company needs, it kind of has its way of kind of working itself out. We actually had an employee who left because it was a little the pace and everything was just too much for where she was in her life, and she came back a few months ago. So that's actually my favorite kind of retention, because she found her way back. So, but generally I think at our stage anyway, it has had its way of working itself out.
Same.
So Ignite Nebraska also has 100% retention. We have a team of 5, and we're going to be tripling in 3 years. But one of the things that we do as a nonprofit, so when you think of nonprofits, and you can look up every nonprofit executive's salary on their 990s, so it's public information. Nonprofits are historically underpaid, very similar a little bit to the startup community, right? You can't pay a premium. Well, our nonprofit was founded by Blue Cross Blue Shield in the beginning. They funded us, and now we're our own. We are uniquely well paid. So we have case managers that are making north of $80,000 a year. And you might say, wow, that's crazy. But I think that's why we are able to do, when people hear that we're a team of 5 and all the things that we're doing, it's because we are well compensated, and we won't change that. We want to be the leader of that. And so for us, that's why we think it's part of our retention and our culture. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head exactly what our employee retention rate is. Maybe I should look at that more often. I can tell you trailing 12-month net revenue retention, gross revenue retention, EBITDA, what else? And I don't pay attention because it is so high, right? Like we've been able to really attract people to our culture and what we're doing. What I think is interesting that might be interesting to the group is like we've scaled, and now our retention of like when I came in the first 36, a lot of those people have self-selected out at this scale. They were like, yeah, I wanted to be scrappy and build something. At that point we had no cash. Like their salary was like 10 raspberries, and they got equity, and they've been able to self-select out as we've scaled. So like that's an interesting dynamic, is like we've gone through these life cycles of like what we need to go from 100 in revenue to 250 is fundamentally different than what we needed going from 1 to 5, right? And so that's where I see like most of our retention is like people just like opting out of the scale over time. But yeah, I would guess we're at like 90% employee retention.
So I have a little bit different take as a founder, so I want to make sure I answer the question, even though I'm not really supposed to, so I apologize. So 3 things. Thing number 1, when people start at Peeq or other companies I've run, I always say, my goal for you is to start your own thing. Our goal for the company is to build something that you'll be proud of, and that if we grow or sell, you'll make enough money, you can start your own thing on something you're super passionate about. And then the reality of startups is you're totally dependent on being able to raise money, sell revenue, and be able to balance that on a forward-looking basis with big growth. So you're constantly kind of going, oh my gosh, like we're going to run out of cash if we stay at this personnel level without growing this much. In at least one of the businesses, and it may be more, but at least one, we had to lay people off because we were going to run out of cash. So I want to make sure I state that, because in the startup world, like it's not, hey, we'll make a lower profit or we'll lose money for a year. It's we'll be dead. Like we don't exist anymore in 6 months if we keep this same level of employment. And so I've had to do that, and it's the worst thing. And it's the worst thing because you've basically told people, we're not going to pay you well. You're betting on me. You're not betting on this big building and all the people there. You're betting on me. And I effed up. It was my fault. That's super hard. So, and that, I think, having been in bigger employers where we've laid people off, et cetera, is a little bit different, both because it affects the founder a little differently, but also because from a structural perspective, you're not able to offer them the same sort of payment after they've been let go. Like all the other pieces are kind of much worse. So it's a bad situation. Does anybody want to comment on that?
I hate to do the same thing. It's awful.
And I've laid people off in companies as well. So I want to be clear. I've laid people off. It's way worse as a founder. Because you're not laying them off as the company. You're laying them off as you. You're like, I messed up. It is totally my fault. I own this. It's really hard. There was a question in the crowd.
On the last panel, we were asking if impact of BIA from an investor perspective, but with having founders on stage, just be curious whether
So I'm going to tee this up because I don't know if everybody was in the last panel. You might all love startups so much that you just stay in this room. But so the Business Innovation Act was passed in 2011. It has been wildly successful. So in a different life, I was considered one of the top 10 people in the world for measuring entrepreneurial ecosystem. So I have like a unique expertise in this. And what I will tell you is the BIA is the #1 entrepreneurship program in the world. I'm not saying that as somebody from Nebraska. I'm saying it's not even funny how much different we are than other states. Every state where I go and talk says we wish we had something like this. The total spend over the course of since 2011 is $53 million. So you can do the math. The impact is over $1 billion. There are no economic development programs that have that type of return on investment. So the question I'm going to ask the panel is not, does it work? It definitely works. It's what was the impact on your company? So we'll start with Tullen just because he has a mic, and then we'll work our way back.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it a little bit. We did get the prototype grant. Invest Nebraska had been thank you, Dan. for all of the support. Had been like in helping, and like really, I think all of that CompanyCam wouldn't have. Well, maybe I should tell this story. Insight Venture Partners is a tier 1 investor. If you haven't heard of them, look them up. They manage a $90 billion asset fund that invests in tech. CompanyCam would not be where we are today without Insight Ventures being a part of our board, investing in us, and helping us solve the hard problems of scaling. Insight Venture would not have been on our board if it wasn't for all of the other things that happened, the prototype grant, being able to get seed raised in Nebraska, and like, I mean, it was huge, right? Luke was pitching Insight in 2017 when he did a seed round, and like, they didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to touch Nebraska, like the stage, the locale, like they just didn't get what we were doing. But we were able to raise locally, and I think we need to continue figuring out how to make sure that local companies can raise that $1 or $2 million that gets them to that next stage, so that we can build companies that can attract tier 1 investors like an Insight Venture Partners, because like they changed we didn't know what we were doing. We were like faking it, and we had product market fit. And maybe I shouldn't say we were faking it. Dan knows we weren't exactly faking it, but like we were able to level up, and like none of that would have happened without all of those incremental steps, the prototype grant, being able to raise locally, like getting to that next step is what feeds the ultimate thing that everyone wants, and then they look at, and like, you know, a bunch of employee, I'm not afraid to say it, like we've created liquidity. There's been a lot of taxes paid locally, and people that are now in a position to reinvest. And one thing that excites me the most is Nick Small. I don't know if anybody knows the Smalls, great, incredible family. Quinn just started a company, and Nick has been with us. He was employee number 10 and is like a critical reason we were able to scale our go-to-market. And he was able to just leave in August and go help his brother do it again. Like, we need that, and none of that would have been possible without all of this foundation. And by the way, I think Quinn got the prototype grant as well. So like, this success feeds success. I think that's what I'd say overall is success feeds success, and that early stage is so critical that like anything that gives you that edge to be able to raise from tier 1 investors in the future.
Yeah, so Swish Boom received the prototype grant for $150,000, and we definitely wouldn't have been able to have a team of 3, do 4,000 babysitting jobs. The average job was about 4 hours. Those are people going back to work. Those are people going out to restaurants, right? So there's like an economic impact of that. But many of my investors said, Kellee, you know, because I really struggled. I'm like, God, I failed. Like, I suck at being a founder. I suck at growing a business. And many investors said, I'd invest in you again, because the prototype grant was betting on the rock stars of Nebraska. It's betting on the people that are willing to take a bet. And now, as the executive director of Ignite, I have an email that is sitting in my inbox right now. The Department of Health and Human Services said, we will commit to hiring 500 of Ignite Nebraska participants in our agency, and the state of Nebraska is going to give us $4 million to grow across the state. Now, I don't want to say that's just because of me, obviously our team, right? But if I hadn't learned what I learned by scaling and failing a business that prototype gave me that opportunity, I wouldn't be in this position to be able to grow this nonprofit that has so much economic impact. So that's why it's so important that this funding is available.
I think that absolutely everything that Kellee said, and people have, it's hard to explain how hard it is to be a founder. Most people never get the idea off of the napkin, right? So the founders are willing to take the risk to start these companies, but the stats are clear. 95% of female startups fail, and 90% of startups in general fail. And the number one reason they all fail is because of lack of funding. So the very last thing that we should do is take away funding, because it is an incredible program, and we need everything in Nebraska and this helps contribute to it. We did not get the prototype grant, but Invest Nebraska has been an amazing partner. The ecosystem is, I don't mean it as a derogatory term, but kind of incestuous with the number of people that are all involved and all trying to help one another. And there's a lot of overlap as far as where funding's coming from and who knows who. And everybody's working towards the same goal, to try and help these startups win and stay. But that window, I'm going to go back to the gap. It's huge, and it's like you can get a company off the ground. Great, we've thrown all of the resources at them, but they're going to go to die if we don't keep making sure that they have the funds that they need to get to the place that they get to profitability. And it's so much more than what everybody thinks.
I would echo most of what's kind of already been said, and I know in the investment panel, Charlie talked a little bit about being able to do things like when you're writing a check from like Move Ventures that is in the grand scheme of things a relatively not huge check, $50,000 check, very significant for lots of startups. But when you can pair that with programs like the prototype grant, when you can then leverage, okay, then you've got a little bit from Move and you've got the prototype grant. Now you can build enough technology, start focusing on enough sales to get yourself to the place where you are ready for Invest Nebraska, where you're ready for Nebraska Angels, where you're ready for those things. It's really a layering strategy that makes it possible. But I will say that it's that the different programs that are part of BIA, the different places, the different things that have been in place have been instrumental in helping us get going, in part because of those kind of layers of things that happen. And I think that, I will also just say Ben Williamson, I don't know if he's in the room or not, but absolutely critical human to the formation of our company, and that is because of Invest Nebraska and because of the ability for people to say, oh, you know what you should do is you should pair this thing with that thing, and then that's going to give you enough to really get going. That's really what helped us get going.
So to that point, I want to make sure that I emphasize, I've worked with lots of startups over the course of the last 25 years. When I'm old, so that was me really sort of leading in. I've been doing this for 25 years. When I started, there were 0 venture-backed startups in Nebraska. There was actually one per year. There's about 60 now, okay? So to give you an idea of the scale, the layering that Karen was talking about is exactly what happens. And the layering isn't just us talking to each other, which is what Jennifer said. It's that the ecosystem has developed in a way, but DED has been a critical part of that. Invest Nebraska has been a critical part of that. And simple things like the Husker Venture Fund or the Maverick Venture Fund can't exist if the prototype grant didn't happen. Because it was a mechanism to do a $5,000 or a $20,000 investment to teach kids that now run all of the venture groups in the Midwest, that work for Nelnet, that do all this stuff. Without that layering process of people being able to learn, Kellee mentioned learning as a founder, this stuff doesn't happen. And the point of that is, it's not just a policy, it's that policy is the foundation that Tullen mentioned, that is the foundation of a lot of the companies that you would go, oh, well, this company would have existed if this program didn't exist. And the answer is, well, it's existed for 15 years, so the founders had the building from that. It has a building process that's critically important. So I got the sign that says it's time to wrap up. So I want to make sure that I thank the people on the panel because they were awesome. And I want to make sure you end up at lunch because I was instructed to say lunch is next. So we're going to have a little break. Go grab your food. So first, let's thank them.